Hey guys, welcome to another episode here on Roach Pros. On today's episode, we're going to go over how I set up my bins and why I set up my bins the way that I do. I will also be going into detail a little bit on heating and humidity in addition to that, along with some other random facts thrown in there. And on next week's episode, I'm going to go over how to sex your roaches from the top, being able to view them based on their almost wings, and also how to sex them by flipping them and check their reproductive organs, if you will. I will also be showing you my method on how to separate any size roach, but particularly babies, from the frass, and how to separate your cleanup crew, your dermistant or buffalo beetles and their larvae from the frass also, for an example, if you didn't want them in there or if their population was too high. We'll also go over the cleanup crews and how to maintain them and what signs you should be looking for as part of your colonies. They are part of your colony if they're in there. They're not a separate thing. You need to also control them at the same time as your dubia roaches. So that's all going to be in next week's episode. And today, like I said, we're going to be getting into bin design. So let's just go ahead and jump right into that and time warp. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and show you the most efficient way to set up your bins to provide your roaches with all the basics that they need. There is many bin designs, but I'm going to show you what works best for me. I'm going to explain why I do what I do, so hopefully it makes sense to you also. So some of the basic things you're going to need is you're going to need your bin. This is the bin I'm using today for this video, but it doesn't really matter. Just make sure that it's tall enough that they can't get out of, ideally, unless you're purposely going to go with something like this, which is a lot thinner than the other ones, right? So I have different bins for different reasons, but if you notice, my bins are clear. There are several reasons for this. The main one is I like being able to see through it, particularly to check for condensation, which you'll find out about why later. And since my roaches sit in my closet that's in the dark, I'm not worried about light peering through. If you're going to store your roaches like in your room or something where there's going to be a lot of light, go ahead and get a bin that they can't see through because dark is better. The next thing I'm going to need, or you're going to need, is a humidity device. You can see I already put water in it. This is a to-go container from H-E-B. They're like 10 for $10. Actually, I can go ahead and just set that in there like that. Bam. So that's what's gonna provide our humidity for the box. We're already a step in. And next, we might as well go ahead and put our egg crates in. But we're gonna go back to the humidity box. So with the humidity box, its purpose is to provide a humidity throughout this entire bin, along with a concentrated area. Much like when you get out of the shower, your toenails are softer. Dubia roaches want the same thing when they're molting. This is to simulate a log that has wet dirt underneath it. So if they were off in Argentina, where they're from, and it's an arid day, they would crawl underneath a log or seek some other concentrated point of moisture. This is that spot without having to have a pool of water. I use water gel crystals. On a quick note on the water gel crystals, if you do use them, don't get the ones that are calcium fortified. That's too much calcium for your bug. Their exoskeletons are made out of calcium, and if they get too much, it makes it harder for them to break out. So don't use the calcium fortified ones. Other than that, the water crystals are fine. Just make sure you let them sit overnight to fully expand. You can tell because there won't be air bubbles in them anymore. That's how you can tell when they're done. Because I used water gel crystals, I noticed that they would hang out on the crystals. They would just lay on them when they didn't consume all of them. So once I started giving them this, they would then start laying on this, and then as I got better about how to get the humidity to go everywhere, now they almost never hang out on that thing anymore unless they're molting. So you can also apply a heat mat underneath your bin to get the heat through in order to provide the humidity to make it come in a lot more. You're going to need to fill it up though. A nice thing about this is with the screen I cut it out so you can just pour the water in. You know, it looks something like this. And the reason you want something with a lid that you can cut off and attach a screen, I just use a hot glue gun, you can get them at any Walmart, is because particularly if you have babies in there, that their poop can fall through the screen, it's going to go in the water. So you're going to want something easy for you to take the lid off, scrub it out, ideally something dishwasher safe, or really I just use lukewarm water for everything, and then just wipe it out with a rag. That's how I do all my cleaning, but for those of you that want to do extra steps, like make sure it's dishwasher safe, so if you put it in the dishwasher, you'll be okay, right? So the next point, and speaking of the heating, by the way, I use a heat mat that goes underneath. This one here is a little small for this bin. This is actually for a different thing. This is the one I have right now on hand. But so there's a difference between bottom heat and side heat depending on your setup and what you're doing, right? So what I do is I put the heat mat on the bottom with my egg crates on top vented up, so that way the heat can rise. I'll show you that in a second. If you put it on the side, and then, so some people will put it on the side, and then they put their container, their egg crates like this. But see how that creates a wall? That means all that heat is just going to be trapped right here. You know, this spot here will be like 100 degrees, and this spot will be like 98, blah, 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 right as it goes this way. Which means that it's hard for the bugs to get around. You can see how this one goes almost wall to wall. So if you're going to put side heat, make sure that it goes like this, so that way the bugs can go left and right and get closer or farther from the heat as necessity. The whole idea with the humidity and with the heat is just like with a bearded dragon, you want a couple varied levels. You want a lot of heat, a lot of humidity. You want low humidity, low heat. So that way they can switch with a concentrated spot of humidity right here. So let me show you how you get these the easiest way. You can obviously get a knife or something to cut, but really they're just easy to rip apart. I'm going to show you real fast. This one right here, well, I have 4 of them, right? I'm going to have to do it 4 times. But I'm going to do it in real time so you can see how easy it actually is. So I know I want to go this way because otherwise the middle is going to be down the middle of the dome, which we don't want. We want to use this groove, right? So right here on these, you go ahead, use your thumbs as best you can, and then you just pop those out, go down the line, switch it, do it again, fold, and then usually they can just, you can even just let them in like that. You don't have to rip it all the way. I like to rip it all the way because you're going to need to do that eventually for when you knock them out, right? When you need to sort them and stuff. So you might as well just go ahead and do that. And then, let's get those in right there. Just like that. Bam. Now you can see how we're using the maximum surface area provided. I'm also not going all the way up to the top. I'm leaving a good, 6 inches or whatever. But obviously if you wanted to store more, you would just, add your, don't break them down. Just set them in like that. Obviously, I just like doing it this way because it works for me. Like I said, there's many different designs. Do what works for you. And then dome to dome, right? Oops, stay together. And my dogs. Hey, Sadie. Sadie. There we go. Looks like I'm able to fit 1 more. That's why I got 3, right? Well, whatever. Go. Pop them open. Line them up. And then also another thing when you do this, make sure it's either all the jagged side or all the nice side. Because if you go opposites, they don't line up nearly as well. Just as a heads up. That's why I do it like this. Bam. So as you can see, they're fairly snug. They fit in. It took me minimal effort. We still have a gap right here though, so that's why we have our fourth crate. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing. Get it ripped in half. Oh, this one didn't want to go. Ish. There we go. And now, we're going to need to measure it out. So I don't want this row right here. So same thing. Pop that one out. Will it fit now? Yes, it will. Cool. So that's the right measurement. So you want to line up your things again so you don't mess up your cut or your tip. So same thing. You want to break it right off on those ones. Just like that. Bam. And then line them up again. That should fit snugly. Just like that. Now we have this little gap right here that we're going to have to deal with. And that's when I like to use these. You're going to have to cut them down to size or whatever. But, oh, look at that. This one I don't have to do. So I put it in there, and you can't really see from that angle. See if we can get the camera to lean over. There we go. So I actually want this to touch this. Once again, I want a nice easy ramp and access points for all of the animals to come off and on this thing. And then I see I'm going to cut off one of these and just fill up that gap just because I don't like seeing it. Even though I wouldn't be able to see it once I put the lid and stuff on. But there you go. That's the basic setup of what you do. I also have different containers. These ones latch on. They're a little bit more secure. But yeah, so you can just use, whatever works for you. And the next information is particularly food and water. So this is how we're going to help control our humidity. We're going to have dishes. You get these at any pet store. It doesn't matter. These are just the two I happen to have on hand for this video. Go ahead and set them on top on this side. So this is what I do. I put my food and water over here on this side. And as you can see, this is the bigger area. This is where your roaches are going to want to hang out. They're going to want to hang out next to the food and water. They're going to be here as close as possible. Which is why I like putting my heat on this side. Again, a slightly bigger mat. This is why I like to put my heat on this side, because they already want to be over here. And if they want to cool off, they can come over here to this side, or if they need a molt or whatever, they can come over here if this side gets too hot with a little bit of lower humidity. So this side will be lower humidity and lower temperature. Lower humidity, or higher humidity with a lower temperature, and then a high humidity, high temperature right over here. So that's our three different radiants, what we have going on here. So another way to help control your humidity, though, is be mindful of what foods you're putting in here. When you add a bunch of leafy greens, especially ones that you just washed off, that's adding water and stuff into your environment. Particularly if you don't give them, if you give them way more than they can eat, that's when you're going to get mold. You should only be giving them enough food and water for about 2 days at a time. This will also limit the flies and stuff that you get, because there won't be anything for them to consume, because obviously your roaches are going to eat stuff faster than the fruit flies. So try and actually learn and measure out how much your colony eats, and that will really help you do this. My high end of the humidity right here in this concentrated area is usually about 90%, while the rest of the box is somewhere around 70 to 80% humidity. As mentioned earlier, they do prefer higher humidities if you can get them. It doesn't mind. Particularly the little young ones, they're molting super fast. When they're newborns to their first or second molt, is all happens within about a 1 week, depending on your temperatures and stuff like that. I've seen them start to molt within like 2 days. So that's that's another reason why I like to have high humidity. So when the babies do come out, they're good to go. Also, they can just go eat right away. They can go. Obviously, they can climb up and down on these things, and yeah, you don't want. That's why you want solid backs to make sure that the babies can't hide in those little grooves. As you know, they're hard enough to get out of these things, let alone something that has some sort of lip that they could hide underneath. Yeah, so your rough temperature range is you want if you want them to have about a 4 to 6 month breeding cycle, you want your females to be pregnant for about 4 to 6 months, put the temperature at about 70 degrees. They'll be fine, but like I said, they'll just move really slow. They won't eat a whole lot, and they'll breed a lot slower, but they will breed. And then if you want your breeding cycles to be more like 3 months, then pop that up all the way up to about 85 degrees, and you can get it around 3 months. I know for me personally, my fastest growers of the bunches are born and become adult males. Males come up faster than females, but they become adult males within 3 months. So being born to 3 months adult males. Females usually take about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks longer when they start showing up. As a whole, there's exceptions to every rule, right? Every genetic is a little bit different, but just like with people or whatever. But yeah, so that's the bin. Lids for vents. So the other thing I like to do is I like to put just one vent on this side of the enclosure because my food and water and heat is going to be over here, and heat rises. So I don't want any holes on this side because I want that air circulation. That heat that's moving that air, I want to come up, hit this wall, make like the breeze go above my two cooler zones, and then come out the tube that way. Because your roaches are going to be mainly sitting here, this is where all their poop and dead bodies, the baby roaches, right? They're all going to be right here. So I want to get as much of those gases and smells out. That's why we don't like putting our trays in like this. Because when you put your egg crates in, those poops and dead bodies and stuff, they'll pool and gather in these things, and then all that gas just rises up. And then it's the same thing, so when it's like the opposite way, right, all that gas then gets trapped, and since the roaches like to cluster together inside of these things, their head just sits there in the gas, and then they just breathe it in, and they can die. Particularly, so even if you have proper ventilation, if your egg crates are like this, horizontal instead of vertical, that can also be leading to problems in your colony. So that's why I like just having the one hole on this side. It gets that nice airflow coming in and out. You should not be using your vents to control your humidity levels. You should be controlling your humidity levels by your humidity box and what food you're putting in there. The heating and humidity, roaches operate in a range. They have their ideal number, but there's a range. You don't have to be perfect about it. For a temperature, what you ideally want is somewhere around an 85 degree zone, 87, 85. That's right about their optimal level, along with a side that's more like 75-ish degrees. So allow them to go back and forth, or even what I do, I go more extreme than that. My numbers are even more intense. I go about 85 to 87 on one side, and about 82 to 81 on the other side. 80 to 85 is my personal radiant. That's what I use, but I'm trying to get mine to go really fast. So that's actually one way how you're going to control your population's number, is by the amount of food you give them. So don't feed them every day if you don't want a huge number. Or make sure they have access to food 24 hours a day if you want them to breed a lot. Same thing with your heat. If you want to kind of slow down their breeding because they're breeding way more than what you need, turn down the thermostat a couple degrees if you can, if you have some way to do that. Go ahead and turn down their thermostat somehow a couple degrees, and you'll see that they'll start growing a lot slower. Equally to the amount of degrees that go down, right? Because they're exothermic. Well, I hope everybody liked the video, and I hope you learned a couple things about how to set up your enclosures. We got Taco over here. He's getting nice and big. If you like what we do, go ahead and check us out on the Instagram for these daily updates. And if you want to support the channel, we also have a Patreon site. You can go ahead and check those out. It's typically only about $3 to $5, depending on what you sign up for. And all that money, you dedicate it to one of the animals on this channel, and it goes to improving their enclosures along with upgrading our equipment and videos so I can do better quality videos and give you more details on how to do things, how our creatures evolved, and proper maintenance of these animals. And we look forward to seeing you again here on Roach Pros. Make sure you hit the subscribe. Make sure you hit the subscribe and the bell icon for new notifications whenever we go ahead and put out our videos. So this has been a Roach Pros episode, and if you have any questions, because I'm sure I forgot information, go ahead and leave comments down below. And if you need help on your bin designs or a little guidance to help control your humidity and or heat or whatever, by all means, link some pictures and comment below, and I'll respond as best I can to everybody and help you out getting your things correct. So yeah, thanks for checking us out, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.